Welcome to Important Shift Podcast with Sarah
and Taryn, where we cover social issues, politics, popular culture, spirituality,
and basically anything and everything in between.
So let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Woo! Okay.
All right. Happy
Hi,
New Year,
everybody. Happy New Year.
It's our first show of 2025.
And I thought of that when I wrote the date, 1/06/2024, and was like, oh, well, it is 2025. I always love my first faux pas when I write the wrong date.
And not only is it our first show of the year, but we have our first guest.
Our first guest!
But our first guest is Rage, so he's kind of a guest. And he's kind of an OG.
So yeah, if you're just tuning in and this is your first time hearing us, Rage is our husband, and his name is Raging. He is a MMA coach and owns the IRE division. But yeah, I think, Taryn and I, we will just, we always have a little teaser at the end of our other episodes. So the last episode, we talked about service to self and service to others, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about how people get confused between those two different terms and oftentimes think that service to others means that you have to give away your energy and that you are serving others, like kind of in a slave mentality, and not doing anything for yourself. And it's actually very much the opposite. When you're in a service to others mode, you are actually taking care of yourself and protecting your energy as well as helping the other person. And when you're giving your energy away to someone, thinking that it's service to others, you're depleting your own energy, and ultimately you're not serving them or yourself. It's like that saying, if you don't love yourself, how can you love somebody else?
It's like a complex topic because, and especially in the spiritual community, people generally try to express themselves and do tasks that are service to others, although it's a little twisted in that they are, you really have to dive into and be honest about the intention, and if there are any narcissistic intentions interweaved in there, especially you see it on social media and it's hard to know, and like this person has 400,000 followers and they're a spiritual teacher and they're and not saying that just because someone has 400,000 followers that what they're saying isn't valued and isn't true. It's just that sometimes you find people that are doing it from an ego place. And we talked a little bit about personality types that link into these lower energies, and that's, narcissism is the first thing that comes to mind. There's obviously, victimhood and I don't know, self-abuse or
and
destructive behaviors that can link you into darker energies.
In the topic of that kind of like doing the act of service to others, there's this new trend of virtue signaling. And I feel like maybe that's something, hi Rach, maybe something Rage can talk about, where it's like, that's something that a lot of people in the kind of love and light community, or on social media especially, it's like they're trying to make themselves look good by doing things
Yeah,
like giving someone
donations
money or
and-
something, but they make sure that the video camera is on while they're giving someone money. So
charity events. I mean, a lot of businesses do that with charity events, and they use it for promotional purposes. And it's like, okay, you are a charity, or you ran this, you ran this party for a nonprofit organization, but you used it to get a notch on your website, or to get into this blog, or to so.
Right, and there's a fine line between selfless behavior, that you're doing something to truly help someone else, and the other thing that I was first talking about, where you're giving your energy away and being so selfless that you aren't protecting yourself and thinking about yourself. Right? So it's kind of a complicated topic, but I think a lot of
well, it trails off into different. So let's say if you are that type of person, myself included, I used to give all of my energy away, and to where I didn't have any energy for myself or my family, so I was just exhausted, because I would just spread out all this, and I thought I was doing a positive thing. But if you don't set those boundaries for yourself, then you end up hurting yourself, and then it becomes this kind of dark-seated, a lot of negative emotions and attachments that happen, in your mind and in your emotional body and in your physical body, or even like, let's say you physically exert yourself, then you are exhausted. I guess Rage knows a lot about that with training, strength and conditioning. So there's where you get to your max, you reach your max, and then you have to rest. Where if you do that physically and emotionally with your service to others' energy, and you go past your max, you end up hurting yourself.
like diminishing returns.
I guess, yeah, that's a good analogy. With the physical exertion, it's a little bit easier to understand or to see. So I guess maybe that's why you'd want to use it for an analogy. Service to self and service to others. Yeah, it does. It gets hard to delineate. But really, it's the intention that you have for the actions that you're doing, and even though some people act as though they're in service to others, the motivation is still very selfish.
And it can be coming out of that place of like trying to fill a hole in your self-worth, or
Sure.
like you feel like, for instance, I had as I've spoken about in previous podcasts, I had a narcissistic personality type that I was dealing with growing up. And one of the things that you do when you're in a relationship like that with someone is because they're so hard to please, and oftentimes they're just never pleased, you end up trying to find all the different ways that you can change your own behavior in order to make them happy, in order to make them, or to get the response that makes you feel safe. And usually what ends up happening is you give all the energy and they take all the energy and they don't give anything back.
Well,
But they might give you like a little breadcrumb.
they give energy back on their terms, and when it's convenient for them, yet that it's still, all of the energy is it's all focused on the fact that they're giving out. So they're giving out to get a a reward or recognition, and they're giving
Look
out.
how nice I'm being right now.
Yeah, kind of like the people who give to charities.
Right. So, I mean, that's called narcissistic supply. And with a narcissist, everything is either a narcissistic supply or a narcissistic injury. I don't really think that we're meaning to talk as much about narcissism.
It's okay. It's a big topic for empaths, and most people listening to a thing like this are empathic in some way, which is why they're on a spiritual kind of journey. And most empaths have some kind of interaction or trauma with narcissists, because empaths are people that feel very deeply and care a lot and try to give a lot. And they often get taken advantage of by narcissists.
Or preyed upon.
Preyed upon, yeah.
And if they can't understand, and a lot of people like Taryn and I, we like to try to fix people, or we think that we can fix it. Giving them second, third, fourth, fifth chances, and it's coming from a loving place. It feels, although it's kind of denying the fact that it's happening, because it's not wanting to accept who this person is. And rage is really good at cutting people out.
So rage, and we did talk about this when we really went into the narcissistic topic the first time, but rage was the one really who taught both Sarah and I how to disengage from people who are pulling your energy and taking something from you and never giving something back. And it was really hard for us to do that, because we always felt bad, or we felt like, oh, well, maybe if we just give them one more chance, they'll rise to the occasion. And he was really good about, he can read somebody.
Right, and then you just step back and come at it from more of an observer point. You have a, in quotes, friend who, when you look back, there's no reciprocation. There's you're constantly going to her, and she'll ask you for favors, and you'll do favors for her, or give things, time, energy work, body work, physical skill. You'll give things to the relationship, but then she never gives anything back. And the relationship, you look at it, and it's been like that the entirety of the relationship, a good decade.
So,
and then
rationally instead of emotionally, which a lot of people do.
You got, every now and then you got to say, well, why are we friends? Why? What is the relationship here? And if it's just I give and you take, well, that's not a friendship. That's not a relationship.
Right. Or if the answer is, well, we've been friends for so long, we've been friends since forever, and then you're like, but what does that actually mean? You've known each other for a long time, and you've been in this type of relationship for a long time, but what are you actually, how are you benefiting from this? And
people do grow apart. That's why a lot of relationships, not, besides friendships, but intimate relationships, they, you have to really be aware and tuned in. And, if you notice that maybe you're going onto another path than your partner, or they're going on another path, and just make sure you guys are on the same page. And a lot of friendships don't do that.
Yeah, but this is different than growing apart. And yeah, sometimes you're growing apart, and that's fine. You let it go. But this is really taking into account and being responsible and being realistic, and looking at the merits of the relationship, and looking at the behaviors of yourself and the other person involved. And for a lot of people, that's actually really hard to do. It's really hard to look honestly at what you do and what you contribute and what you bring and what you ask for. A lot of people don't have that kind of intra-personal ability to self-reflect, and then the interpersonal and looking at the relationship as a whole, and then honestly looking at the other person's behaviors.
When do you think you first had to do that? Do you remember the first person you had to do it with, or was it a friend or an ex, or?
I really don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, Rage was really good at this. It's like a superpower ability, and he could see within. And Taryn and I have we have very similar. Maybe because we have similar abuse, or we have similar patterns in how we related with our friends, and we were both, and I did kind of look in a way, this might sound weird, but I did look up to Taryn and Rage and how they related to their friends, and I thought Taryn was more sophisticated, so her friends were different than my friends. And when my friends first came to visit me, Taryn and Rage were like, "What the fuck is that?" They were like, "Why are you friends with that thing? They're horrible, And I made excuses for them and said, they're whatever, having abandonment issues, or they don't understand, or they don't want to let go, or and I never looked at my friends like that. I thought that's kind of like your family, that's who they are, that's what they are, you just accept them. And so anyway, the thinking about having to cut off a relationship just because the other person was being not nice to you or mean to you, and having to look at that seemed extreme for me. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. Because I was giving all my energy away, and I was thinking more of the other person, how they were going to feel, more than how I was going to feel. And then I think being in a relationship with Taryn and Rage is okay, well, it's like having, not like they're kids, but it's like having kids. They're like, okay, it's not only me anymore. I have to think about other people. And I didn't really care about how I felt because I was single, I was solo, and I was always very busy, so my feelings were secondary to, my mission and goal of my life. But
which also happens when, and this is why childhood abuse and childhood trauma is so damaging, because you, from a very early age, you learn to put yourself last, or you are made to believe that you are not worth love or appreciation or even just good behavior. It's kind of like you just accept that people will treat you like shit, and that's just the way the world is, and that's just how people are. And you make excuses for people, and then you say, oh, it's just they're having a bad day, or it's like a woman, someone who's, or not just a woman, but someone who's in an abusive relationship in adulthood, and you see them like they have a horrible domestic abuse fight, and the cops come, and then the person ends up advocating for their abuser and saying, oh no, he just had a hard day, or she just had a fight with her parents or whatever, and they didn't mean it. And it's like, okay, maybe once or twice if that happens, you can do that. But if it becomes a pattern, then you have to stop and look at, wait a second, why am I allowing this person to consistently abuse me, and what excuses am I making for them, and what is it in my emotional body or energy body or spiritual body that I don't think that I'm worthy of someone treating me well. So I just stay with someone who consistently treats me like crap. And that's where you kind of can get into the self-reflection, psychology, and then going even into the spiritual side of things and looking, or the energy side, and looking at what holes you have in your own being that you're trying to fill with this other person.
And
Feel.
it doesn't have to be an extreme abusive type situation.
Right.
We had a friend that we had a relationship with who was mentally unstable, emotionally unstable, and would constantly have catastrophe in her life, and we were there for her often, and we supported her and we helped her, and then we made arrangements for her to actually start getting help, getting professional. We actually used our network to find her a psychiatrist, and she didn't help herself and just went back to her old patterns, and that's when I was like, oh, okay, well, it's time to let this relationship drift apart. It's time to spend less time with this person, and eventually, because of the way this person is, they will just run off to the next shiny thing. And
Which they did.
and Taryn and Sarah actually didn't agree with me,
Yeah.
and that was kind of one of the first situations where I was like, no, this is happening, and this is how we're going to proceed with this. And then later on, they came to appreciate that when you have someone that is constantly catastrophizing everything and creating chaos and instability and is a crazy maker. Yeah, there was no animosity, there was no hostility, we didn't have a argument or a fight, or it was just, okay, well, we'll let her drift away and chase the next shiny thing, and that's that.
And the funny thing is, for Sarah and I, because we were so not used to that, we felt like really
Felt so sad.
bad about it. We felt like it was this big drama, and we felt like guilty and that she was going to be mad and all of this stuff.
Or hurt even.
Or hurt, yeah.
Didn't even notice.
Didn't even notice.
Yeah, what was really funny is then we saw her, like, I don't know, years later, I think a couple years later at an event, and she was just like, hey, how are you? Like, she had no idea that anything even happened, and that we had even, she just acted like nothing happened.
I think Taryn and I, maybe it's to try to, and from the narcissistic abuse, it's trying to fill a hole that you make the other person feel better, and you make the other person in hopes that you're improving them, and then you see in them that they get a little bit better and they change this behavior, and they're not really changing the behavior. We're wishing that we could help them, and they don't. And rage is just really good at this. It's like a psychic intuition, protector, Archangel Michael energy, where he just sees it and he can tell this person is not going to change. And I'm just like, I don't know how you can see that clearly, but it's really a gift, and it's beautiful to hold the hope for someone to change. And rage is really good at knowing that line and setting like a healthy boundary to where you're leaving enough space for the person to change and grow, and giving them plenty of opportunity, and then realizing they're choosing not to. And it's a very amazing skill that I think a lot of people could use.
And it's also interesting because it's just interesting then if you don't.
We are at Hermosa Beach right now, so you might hear some volleyball players in the background.
We got some guys showing off for the ladies over there.
I think in volleyball, the louder you yell, the hotter you are. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Sorry if there's any volleyball players. We don't understand.
I think they're actually playing football, but anyway.
I guess we're kind of being loud too, though.
No. Yeah, but as we started out really doing the personal work and the psychological work just for us to clear our own pasts and our own traumas enough to be functional people, and then to have to do all of that to be in not only a relationship with one other person but two other people. It is, we set out for ourselves a very rewarding but challenging experience by being in a relationship with three, because you exponentially add to the issues if you have any. But like we've said,
it helps bring it out. I will say.
Yeah, but like we've said before, on the positive side, we also have a set in third party, kind of somebody who can see more clearly if two people are having an argument. You have someone who can act like a therapist and take an impartial view of what's happening and kind of help the other people see the perspective.
I'd say mediator more than
Mediator.
therapist.
There you
Yeah.
Of course, the pitfall, the thing to watch out for is triangulation, where I grew up with that manipulation tactic, where one person triangulates, and what that basically means is the manipulator is having a problem with another person or conflict, and then they find a way to gang up and bring the mediator to their side. And actually, in my previous marriage, I had my now ex-wife do that with the couples therapist. So that I was going in for relationship for couples therapy and then having to defend myself against two crazy bitches. So
Which is why he works so well in this relationship, because he's already used to having two crazy bitches. Yes,
It's crazy. I mean, it was a good therapist, I would assume.
she was terrible.
But I mean, you paid her well. It was expensive.
It was
therapy. An expensive therapist,
Yeah.
so you think that they're good,
Right.
and then they can't.
Well-
They're not even self-aware enough to realize what they're doing.
Yeah, and
they're
New
being
York City
manipulated.
especially is full of incompetent psychiatrists, psychologists, and the industry itself is actually just full of damaged and mentally ill people, which is why they go into psychology in the first place, but they never actually get their shit straight, so then they're really fraudulent players. Now, not the entire industry, but in New York, it's extremely bad, but universally, it's pretty bad. But that's not to say there aren't good therapists. Of course there are, and there's decent psychiatrists also. But it's a hazard of the profession that.
well, and similar to the medical industry, how we kind of have everything a little bit. I won't say a little bit. We have everything upside down and backwards, where we're treating symptoms rather than causes. That when you put medicine or mental health or something like this, that's a very deep
Rooted.
yeah, but it's a situation where you need to have, the goal has to be to create healthy and whole people, But when you capitalize on it, when you put it into a capitalistic system, the therapist or the doctor gets paid for the person to be ill. So, and this is
so sick care, not health care.
yeah, sick care, and that's a whole other rabbit hole topic we can do. But that basically, it's not really in their best interest financially to heal somebody in one go and then lose them as a client or as a patient.
Right, and it's ubiquitous. One of the things I did in the past was I was what's called CEC provider, a continuing education credit or a continuing education unit provider for strength coaches, chiropractors, physical therapists, and one of the courses.
He was a trainer of trainers and a trainer of doctors.
Well, we'll put doctors in quotes.
Okay.
But one of the other courses that was offered through the same program that I was offering my lectures for chiropractors was how to have repeat customers. So it was a sales and marketing, and
my gosh.
to me, if you're a wellness professional or a healthcare professional and what you're doing is working, you should not have repeat customers, or you should have minimal repeat customers, because they only. So anyway, that's just to illustrate how our sick care is not focal. It doesn't have the patient's best interest at heart. It has capitalism at heart.
And Taryn, it does have a parasitic energy, which is what I think you were originally going to go into in the service to others. What we were kind of tipping around, or what we were kind of diving into in the topic, is that yes, there are abusers out there, and if you are a person that you feel are in this abusive relationship, or you have had a traumatic upbringing, then you do have these patterns to behavioral, mental, emotional patterns that are kind of offshoots, like the earthquake has happened, and then there's the aftershocks of the earthquake. So you're going through these patterns, and I can't remember what it was. Yeah, it was something like you have these parasitic people in your past, yet this parasitic energy keeps happening. Even though you've cut them off, you still have these kind of offshoots of behaviors. So then it attracts.
Well, and especially if you, and this is why we were saying rage helped Sarah and I so much, is because if in the beginning, if you're somebody that doesn't cut that person off, and if you just allow these people to stay in your life, this energy sucker, or this narcissist, or the parasitic energy, where they're taking and you're giving, and you kind of just accept it, then you're basically telling the universe, the quantum field, the matrix, this is okay with me. I can be used and abused, and I'll just take it. And you end up attracting other relationships like that. And then you stop and you look at yourself and you're like, wow, why does my life suck? And why is everybody in my life such an asshole? And it's like, well, you, in a certain way, you have to take personal responsibility for that by saying, because I'm allowing it. And if this person is treating me like this, and I don't get rid of them or make them face it or have a conversation with them and give them a chance to change, then, and if you do that and they don't change, then you are now responsible for being in that relationship and allowing yourself to stay in that relationship. And then, like we talked about in the last podcast, instead of being in a victim mentality about these situations, at a certain point you have to stop and say, I will not be a victim anymore. I will not surrender to this. And that's when you change your pattern. That's when you change your energy field.
Well, and I think, but before that, what we were also talking about is you'll be able to tell if you have a parasitic person or relationships in your life, because it does manifest in other areas in the physical realm and then also in the spiritual realm. So if you're getting, spiritual and or astral attacks, or having some kind of physical parasite, which, by the way, we all actually have parasites unless you've already done a cleanse, which we found some medications. Maybe we can leave some links in the description of some, is it fenbendazole?
Yeah, fenbendazole is a new one, but I mean, I feel like maybe we'll do like a whole health topic at some point, where we can actually talk about the physical health links to these energies. But yeah, that's like that's a whole topic. But
Yeah.
but just in terms of how your own reality and your own personality and psychology feed into the energy world. And because we do energy work, we do the channelings, we do a lot of stuff in the kind of metaphysical realm and looking at the law of attraction and the quantum space. And when you keep your frequency low, you attract energies that are low frequency, because like attracts like, and that's just the nature of our universe, is that your frequency will attract other frequencies that are in your range. And it's like when you're having a shitty morning and then people are cutting you off in traffic, and then the people at work are being jerks to you, and you can feel that kind of compounding cycle where you get into this pattern where you're just attracting more and more chaos into your life. And when you're in that state, that's when you can look in the spiritual realm and see, oh, I've got something siphoning energy from me, or I have something, it can be represented by a chaos energy, or even all the way to a demonic frequency.
And if you do clear it out, like in the physical realm, like let's say you do a physical clearing, like the Fenben, or maybe some kind of, meditation or spiritual clearing, and you kind of cut cords and do, wonderful exercises and meditations to get rid of these attachments, you'll then see in your reality a freedom of those kind of energies too, and also vice versa. Like let's say you cut that person out, maybe some kind of health issue or some kind of reoccurring emotional pattern will start to stop.
There's also something to be said about mindset and habits.
The rational brain.
Well, when Taryn was talking about you had a bad morning, and then that spiraled into bad commute, and then and all of a sudden you're having a bad day. And having a bad day, or the ability to have a bad day, is a mindset. It's something that you've accepted. It's something that you have a habit of. Rather than saying, I had a couple shitty moments in a good day, or just today, once you say, oh, I'm having a bad day, well, that's a proclamation. And now, law of attraction dictates more to agree with. So now you are having a bad day. Where if you have a bad moment and then focus on here and now and what's next, and then raise your vibration and move forward, that's a different, but that's a mindset and discipline and habit.
And overcoming, like people say that you're the person that you are, you're not if you're in a shitty situation, you're not that shitty situation, you are who you are for how you get out of it.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that, an analogy that's not mine, that I'm stealing from Abraham Hicks, they were saying, when you go and stay in a hotel, and it's a one bedroom with no kitchen, and it's just a room with a bathroom, you don't say, oh, this is my life. I am a studio dweller. I have my bedroom and bathroom. I'm a one room person. That's not, no, it's just right now, this is where you're staying because you're staying at a hotel. But it doesn't define you. But if you let it define you, then that is what you become. And that relates back to what you tolerate persists, and then it will grow. And so we're talking about certain people that you should separate yourself from, and understanding that not only can tolerating their behaviors influence your perception of yourself and your vibration, and if it lowers your vibration, then it starts attracting more, if you want to talk about entities, makes you vulnerable to things that you would otherwise be invulnerable to. And then what you tolerate persists, and if you look at it as a vibrational and energetic thing, then you can look at it as your relationship or situations, or so the whole thing is you are responsible for your own housekeeping. You are responsible for your diet, literally your diet of what you eat, what you put in your body, but your information diet, what you listen to, and your vibrational diet. And so you're responsible for all of that. And the one thing a victim never does is take ownership, accountability, responsibility. So the antidote for victimhood is ownership, responsibility, self-accountability.
Yeah. So self-awareness really is the first step to
Self-awareness is the precursor to accountability.
So once you become aware of these things, that's when you're finally taking the first step of stepping out of the denial, and where you can start, to begin your healing journey, and then eventually live in a life of wellness, because you don't want to stay in the healing habit either, because again, like attracts like. So if you're constantly healing and I'm healing and I'm healing, you're telling yourself you're not well.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where the declarations, the positive affirmations, the I am, and the thing that's hard about that when you're in a lower vibration or in a lower frequency is you can feel the dissonance sometimes. Like, for instance, with my health situation, when I'm feeling really, if I, am feeling really bad or feeling really low, and then I'm to say to myself, I am healthy and well, that feels like a lie to me. It doesn't feel true. So you have to craft statements that feel true enough to you that you don't feel like you're tricking yourself or saying empty words. You have to say, I am in a good mood right now. I am in less pain than I was yesterday, and that's great. I am. So you can take little steps and you can start building yourself up.
I woke up this morning.
Right.
Yeah.
I am grateful that I can look out into my beautiful garden. I'm so happy that I have a family that loves me. So you can say positive statements that feel true to you, rather than, again, as Abraham Hicks would talk about, putting the happy sticker on the empty gas tank gauge, right? You don't have any gas left, but you're just saying, oh, it's okay, everything will be fine, I have gas, and it's like, well, that's just not true. And the universe knows that you're lying to yourself.
So yeah, taking baby steps in the right direction is crucial.
A technique for those baby steps is to find and celebrate small wins, little things. Like, I got out of bed today. Yay! Give yourself goals in the direction that you want to go that are so achievable that you feel like an asshole if you don't do it. Right? So,
Taking a bath?
okay, sure. I'm a what we'll call a fitness expert. I don't love the title of expert, but
you
I
are.
work. I am. I'm a fitness expert. So you start working with people who have fitness goals that are pretty lofty, rather large, and they want to jump in both feet and start running, and they set a big goal and they set up a program and they set themselves up to fail. Where one of the things that I would do is I would give the assignment, all right, well, before we start your program, you're going to, on Tuesday, show up to the gym. You're going to show up to the gym, you're going to swipe your card, you're not going to work out. You're just going to get to the gym at the designated time. And then you're going to get back in your car, and then you're going to go about your day. So
you can say, I went to the gym today.
right. And
Honestly.
You achieved the goal that you set forth, which is a baby step to the next. But if you start out saying, I'm going to work out 6 days a week, and I'm going to work out 90 minutes every day, and I'm going to do both cardio and I'm going to lose 30 pounds, and you have all these lofty, and it's achievable, it's possible, it's just highly improbable because you're starting from zero or less than zero. So the first thing you have to do is establish the habit of going to the gym. Before you can even lift a weight or have any kind of consistency with your exercise, you have to first have consistency with getting to the gym on time consistently. So I have my people start there. And of course, inevitably somebody fails. Even with that simple task. Just show it, and then they have an excuse.
It's gotta be so depressing.
And then it's like, okay, well, where do we go from here? And what are we going to do about your excuses and how easily you sabotage yourself? But that's a whole nother thing, and I'm getting off track from what we were originally talking about.
No, it's interesting because personal responsibility it's really like the key. It's one of the keys to all of this stuff. It's the key to mental health, it's the key to physical health, and it's the key to spiritual health. And if you're always looking to the outside for positive reinforcement or for the excuse as to why you weren't able to do this or that, then there's always something that's going to be able to take you off of your course, because the world is full of distractions and full of, all kinds of stuff. But if you yourself if you are the one in charge, then you can reroute yourself. If you give yourself the permission, well, I screwed up today, but it's my responsibility to not screw up next time. It's not, there was too much traffic, it's someone else's fault, the dog ate my homework.
Yeah, it becomes a habit almost. Like anything could be. Like, let's say, we had some technical issues with doing the podcast, or when I woke up, I thought about postponing it, but it was like, you could fall into all those traps, or my car broke down. It's a huge thing. It's not my fault. It's like, there's so many different reasons as to, what you have to have kind of a strong mentality of whatever it takes.
Well, and it's not to say that, and then the other part of it is you have to get out of the habit of beating yourself up. because that's the other part of the victimization. Is not only is it someone else victimizing you, but then you become the one that's victimizing you, and you say, I didn't get to the gym, I didn't do what I said I was going to do, I suck, I'm just a fat ass, and I can't do this, and I'm going to give up. And that part of beating yourself up gives you another layer of excuses as to why you can't be the person that you are trying to be, or
And
that
you're creating a habit for yourself. You then keep doing things like that, and it creates a pattern.
right. And like,
So, just to tie it back, what we were talking about is really what we're talking about is raising your vibration, raising your energies, and a simple mechanism or tactic or technique to do that is to redefine your win or your success and have baby steps in the direction of your goal, and set the first baby step so small that it's almost impossible to fail. And then you make that baby step and you celebrate it. And that right there, celebration, raises your vibration. And then have some consistency with it, and then
Keep winning.
keep winning and feeling better. And then you can start challenging your self-discipline. But to start at less than 0 and try to jump to over 100, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
and then the other part of that is also, if by chance you don't do it that day, or you don't, if something does come up, don't go into excuses, don't go into all that, but also then don't beat yourself up to the point where you lose hope and you lose faith in yourself. Say to yourself, wow, I didn't do it today. I take responsibility for not doing it today, but I am in charge and I will do it next time. And give yourself a little bit of leeway to feel your way into the change. And that's something that I think is the other part of people that are perfectionists, is sometimes you put yourself into this overachievement mode, and then when you don't reach the goal, you then beat the hell out of yourself, so you lower your vibration, and then it makes it harder to do that next time. And you can say, like I used to tell my clients when I was doing Pilates or personal training or that kind of work, is like, okay, if you ate the cookie, it's already done. You already ate the cookie. So don't beat yourself up about eating the cookie. Say, wow, I ate the cookie and I enjoyed it. And good for me. I ate a cookie. And maybe next time I'll choose not to. But spending all this time focused on the fact that you fucked up and ate a cookie, that just lowers your vibration. And then you're like, oh, well, fuck it. I might as well eat the whole box. Right, because then you're like in this nihilistic, well, everything's screwed up anyway. So that's when you can go on this way fast downward spiral. So it's like, I'm a human being. I made a mistake. It's okay. I'll do better next time. And the cookie was really good, and I enjoyed it. Great. So then the calories aren't going to be as devastating to you because you're not as devastated by this little mistake you made. And I think that's another sort of part of it.
There's a pitfall here to watch out for. Just because a lot of people are high achievers, high performers in certain areas of their lives, and then absolute losers in other aspects of their lives, and then they try and use their high achiever tactics for the areas. So, obviously there's a lot of different parts of life. There's finances, there's physical fitness, there's health and wellness, there's relationships, and they will try and use all the same tactics that help them become professional in one area. And it's like, well, if you look at that one area, you're a perfectionist. You work extremely hard, and you probably actually work too hard, and then you try and apply that to every aspect of your life, and it doesn't work. So that's just a caveat I'm putting out there, is to know that the high performance tactics that worked in one area of success. So, I train professional fighters, and we have an extremely rigid training schedule, high demands. Our physical fitness is very high, and if we apply those tactics to our relationships, that's a very good way to not have relationships or to end relationships. Have people walk away real fast or run away.
Rage does embody, we've kind of mentioned Archangel Michael, and
There's dolphins out there again, by the way.
wow,
They've been playing in the waves there
oh,
on the shore.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we had one where we had sea lions in the beginning of it, which I thought was cool. I think it was the Empaths and Boundaries, but we did see sea lions. But yeah, so, Taryn does channel, she does channel archangels. So on our channel, if you're on YouTube, or you can also, it's also on our Rumble channel, wherever you're listening to this. You can see, Taryn channeling different consciousnesses.
We have a playlist called Share Your Voice Channelings, and it's where we post some of our channeling sessions.
So yeah, she'll channel, depending on who she's working with, different consciousnesses. Why is that so hard to say? Consciousnesses. So either her higher self or whoever the person she's working on, their higher self. Arcturian medical team, which she's done on me, and I've seen her do it on other people too, where if they have like a blocked energy in a chakra, she'll dive into that area, channeling the Arcturian beings, and they are really powerful transmutationers of energy. Like, they dissolve any unwanted parasites, or if it's like blockages or pain. It's wonderful. Archangel consciousnesses, which is why I kind of went into this, universal engineers and fairies of source light. But yeah, she found that, after we were kind of studying the archangels, that Rage, he kind of embodies this Archangel Michael energy, and I was just going to read some of Archangel Michael abilities, which, I'm making Rage listen to. So Archangel Michael has many abilities, including limitless power. As one of the first archangels and the supreme commander of the heavenly host, Michael has nearly limitless power. He can achieve anything without limit and is physically and mentally superior to many beings. Invulnerability. Michael is invulnerable to most forms of harm. Flight. Michael can manifest his wings and fly. What was the one I saw? Oh, Smith. Yeah, Michael can strike his targets with a superior force, often resulting in a one-hit kill. This ability deals even more damage to evil enemies. So, Rage thinks I'm a little bit of a huge dork right now for reading this, but I think it's just kind of magnificent, and I do appreciate his ability to guide us to really protect ourselves and cut these energies out in other relationships, and then also in just our behavioral patterns, emotional patterns, and mental patterns. And, for people who've experienced trauma, you have maybe, some hormone imbalance, or maybe some emotional behaviors, or self-worth issues. So you have a lot of these mental kind of gymnastics where you're really just beating yourself up constantly, and you might not even be aware of it. So having that first awareness is really the first step to finding a state of happiness. So I think we are thankful for Rage being on this episode. So
Well, and one of the things that Michael is, he's depicted with this sword, and it's usually has like a blue light around it coming through it, and one of the things that we've seen in the channeling space is this sword of, it's like you could call it the sword of truth. Who one of our friends actually has a crystal that she calls the sword of truth, but it's an energetic ability to cut through bullshit. And
oh, sorry, yeah, that was right. I'm sorry, Terry. Yeah, the wing blades. Michael's feathers can dismember his opponents when swung fast enough.
And the funny thing is, when people think about doing spiritual work, a lot of times, if you haven't really done much of it, or you're just hearing about, metaphysical, like, woo-woo type of stuff, you think of spiritual work as kind of like love and light, and, oh, we're going to raise our vibration and we're all going to be happy. And a lot of spiritual work is about going into the darker parts of yourself, of your psyche, of your fields, of your trauma bodies and your pain bodies, and dealing with the connections that you have created with other beings in a not so good way, with these demonic energies or succubus energies or gremlin type of energies. And so Archangel Michael archetype is really good at cutting out the lower frequencies and not being afraid of actually fighting demonic energies and fighting that lower frequency and not allowing that stuff to take a hold of you. And a lot of empaths and light workers are people that are so they're so wanting the world to be a better place, and they're trying all these different things, and a lot of times they end up with attachments and parasites energetically and maybe physically, or things that they have accepted because they're trying to help other people, and they allow those other people to infect them, not consciously obviously, but so one of the major things about doing the clearing work, and we talked about a little bit about this last time, is you do the stage and you clear your space and you clear the corners and all of this, but this whole show we've been talking about clearing your life and clearing out the people and the situations that you don't want to continue allowing to affect you and infect you. And so having Rage here today, I think we were thinking about talking about all the kind of archangel archetypes, but I feel like we've done a lot of talking, but I think
it's good to bring it into, like, the actual rational 3D happenings that are on the planet, just to have a more relatable, conscious, I don't know, a better word for 3D experience.
Right.
But this is how you can change it in your 3D, and, maybe you don't have to worry about the 5D. It'll change on its own.
Yeah, but I was just thinking, if you do find yourself in a situation like this where you feel like you might be giving your energy away, even just in a helping others, or even if you're a spiritual worker and you're doing energy work, or you're doing body work for someone, or you're a massage therapist or something like that, kind of allowing yourself to look at the archetype of this Archangel Michael, where you are fearlessly cutting chords and disengaging from lower frequencies and not worrying about being nice to people and not worrying about, not to say you're not being nice to people, but not worrying about having to be nice to people, because I think we do get caught in those traps where we don't want to hurt someone and then we end up hurting ourselves, which eventually ends up hurting them too.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, courageously and fearlessly. Like, Rage is able to fearlessly cut someone out. And there is this weird, overwhelming fear and anxiety that if I do this, then this will happen, and this will happen, and this will happen. And you kind of make excuses as to why you shouldn't cut these people out. And a lot of that is, it's not real.
Well, and
the most part.
The funny thing is, too, we talk about him cutting people out, but that's kind of what we focused on. But the thing is, when you do that, when you get rid of the extra stuff in your life, you end up having good, clear, open relationships with the people that are high frequency. And he has a lot of very high frequency people, friends, fighters, people that he relates to, who are, it's almost like a paradox. Like, real martial artists and real fighters, in a certain sense, are people that don't have to fight, because they are so confident in their own ability to stand, to be the bouncer, that they don't have to engage in the petty fights, right? Because they just know that they can hold their space, and therefore other people know when they're around that person that that person can hold their space, and so other people tend not to mess with people like that. So when you really embody that Archangel Michael archetype, you end up in less situations where you actually have to fight, right? You don't get in fights because you don't need to. And same goes with, with energy workers and things. When you clearly know your boundaries and you really define who you are and what you'll stand for and what you won't stand for, you don't end up having to utilize it as much, because you keep your field pretty clean and high, and then the people you come into contact with are of a higher frequency.
Which is, the law of attraction and manifestation. So I think that was a wonderful topic. Thank you, Rage, for your thoughts and for sharing your mad wisdom with us. I'm trying to be like, I don't know, talk to like the cool kids, your mad wisdom. Thank you for sharing your, what do they say now?
I don't know.
Sick wisdom? Thanks for sharing your sick wisdom with us. I think it's the volleyball kids. Maybe I'm seeing them in my subconscious.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, babe.
Yep. You're welcome.
All right, guys.
All right.
Bye.
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 Happy New Year.
Have a happy New Year 2025.